Today we'll be giving a gameplay overview and review of the game Xenon Profiteer.
Distill that air.
Distilling the air. Sounds very odd, but you gotta get that precious xenon. Hi everyone, I'm Tracy, the Gaming Maven.
And I'm Stephane, the game's teacher.
And today we're talking about Xenon Profiteer, but before we get to that, are you looking for timestamps on how to set up, looking to see what the components look like? Well, click on a timestamp below.
Subscribe to our channel to be notified when we post new content, and leave us a comment to let us know how we're doing.
And with that, we've got Xenon Profiteer all set up and ready to go, so let's get to it.
In Xenon Profiteer, players are racing to isolate the most Xenon in order to build upgrades or complete contracts. The player who builds 5 upgrades or completes 5 contracts triggers the end game, and the player with the most Xenon points wins.
Here we have the components for Xenon Profiteer. First we have our decks of elements, nitrogen, oxygen, krypton, and xenon. Then we have our future contract cards, our upgrade cards, our pipeline cards. We also have our starter system cards for each player. That also includes a feed and a reflux upgrade card. Here we have our final turn privilege token. We have our bid tokens in the 5 player colors. We have coins of multiple denominations. We also have a Tactics and Profiteers expansion pack, which includes 3 future contracts that have a special one-time ability when you get them or finish them. As well, we also have our Profiteers and our Tactics cards. So to start with, we're going to play out the nitrogen, oxygen, krypton, and xenon. Normally they are formed in a straight up stack, but for this playthrough we're going to show you them side by each, but usually put them in the order of recommended as per the distill order, which is nitrogen, oxygen, krypton, and xenon. Then we are going to shuffle the upgrade deck, and then we're going to deal out 4 face up. We are going to shuffle the contract cards, and we're going to add in the pipeline cards to it, shuffle them, and then deal 4 out face up. The Xenon privilege token and the money will be put to the side. Normally each player will start with 3 tokens, however we're also playing with the Tactics and Profiteer expansion, so the starting requirements of this particular character is that they start the game with $0. They also have a starting condition on their Profiteer card. Each player will receive their 5 bid tokens. Then they'll receive their system. So what they'll do is they will put out the main card here, face up, and the overtime card side will be face down. Players will shuffle the other 2 cards into their deck of 2 air. So they will receive 2 packets of air, which includes 1 of each of these cards. So they'll have a total of 8 cards plus the other 2 cards from their starting system. Shuffle them up, play them up top. This player starts with a contract card as per their starting condition on their Profiteer card. Then each player is randomly given a Tactics card, and they will play the game end side underneath their Profiteer card so that no one can see what their game end condition is. And they will have a once per game bonus. Now we are ready to begin. On a player's turn, they will need to follow the order of their system cards. So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at their hand of 5 cards. They may have more than 5 cards, but normally the starting hand is 5 cards. Then what we're going to do is we're going to distill, and we must distill in order. So first we must discard to the supply piles any nitrogen, then oxygen, then krypton. Then if we have xenon left, we can isolate xenon to our system. In this case, I do have both nitrogen and krypton, so I could distill the nitrogen because it is the first one I must distill, but I cannot get rid of the krypton to be able to isolate the xenon. What can I do in that case? Well, I do have an upgrade card. Now, I don't have the money to upgrade the card right now. However, I could discard it in order to be able to use the action, and so it wouldn't become a permanent upgrade that I could use a return, but I can use it as a discard upgrade temporarily to use on the one hand, which would allow me to discard a card from my hand. Now, discard a card from my hand basically goes to my own personal discard pile. Now I've isolated xenon, and you basically play it usually under a contract card. Personally, I like to play it up here, but they do recommend putting it kind of underneath where your contract cards are going to be. Then I can either take an air packet, which basically is one of each of these cards, and 2 money. They would then go to my discard pile. So I basically take one of each. I would get 2 coin from the supply for later use. If I didn't want to take air because I had a lot of air, or strategically I may wish to get rid of some cards, I can choose to wipe instead. Wiping basically allows me to either get rid of all of the cards in either the upgrade row or the contract row. The only cards that cannot be discarded are cards that may have either any player's bid token on them. So if there are bid tokens on a card, they cannot be wiped, but all other cards are placed in the discard pile and they are immediately replaced. The second thing we can do before the end of our turn is either to buy or to bid. So buying allows you to buy one of the following cards from either row. Contract cards cost nothing to buy, but you must have the space for them. In order to have the space, you can only have one contract card at a time. There's a visual here to show you. There is a pink tunnel going from the main system card to the contract card. There is nothing continuing on the other side, unlike with the upgrade cards where there is. There is a blue continuation, so you can always add more upgrade cards to your system. In this case, we can't until we complete that. Once we complete it, you would see that there is now a continuation of the pink tunnel, so you can now continue by purchasing a second contract card. But otherwise, they cost no money. The upgrade cards, on the other hand, some have just an outright cost up at the top and some have a corner cost. What is the difference? Well, there is an cost at the top here. You can choose to purchase the card and put it into your discard pile for the lower number, the larger lower number. Or you can choose to immediately install it if it has a number on the bottom by paying the cost below. The difference between these numbers and this number is they equal, so 2 plus 5 is still 7, but what happens is when you immediately buy the card, you pay 2. And then when you get that card into your hand again as part of your play, then you could choose to upgrade it for 5, so it gives you the option to be able to afford it in 2 installments instead of one full cost right up front. If you chose to buy it for the 2, it would go to your discard pile and you would pay the 2 and the card would be replaced. On a player's turn, they could choose to turn the card over and take overtime instead. What does overtime give you? Well, it allows you to distill twice, so you can discard all nitrogen, then all oxygen, or then all krypton, depending on which combinations you have, to still be able to isolate xenon. So it allows you to get rid of more different types of cards in your hand, as long as you still follow the order. Now, it doesn't allow you to take air or to wipe cards, or buy, but it does allow you to bid twice. So what does bidding get you? On the other side, you can normally only bid once, but on the overtime side, you can bid twice. When you bid, you take one of your bid tokens and you play it to any of the cards available out. What does that give you? Basically, it gives you a discount of $1 for every bid token that is on here, and it also costs an additional $1 for an opponent who may wish to buy that card. They would pay the $3 to the bank, but they would pay you $1 as well for each bid token that is on it. Multiple people can play to the bid token, to a card, bid tokens to a card, but they may have to pay penalties to other players. They'll gain coins if they have their own bid tokens. So it may become a net gain of 0 if it works out for you. If pipelines are played, you can play them to the bottom of your card. There is a spot for 3 different types, one for nitrogen, oxygen, and krypton. When you play one to that spot, it has a little pipeline connection. Now, you'll no longer be able to buy, there is 2 of each, so you'll no longer be able to buy the second krypton, but you can always buy the other 2, and they basically increase your hand size for each one of those cards that you have. They also give you victory points at the end of the game. So how do you complete a contract? A contract is completed when either you distill enough xenon to be able to complete it, or you choose to have enough. When you have enough xenon, you can choose at any time to complete a contract. One you either just immediately received, or one that you already had and then you distilled enough xenon to be able to complete it. What happens in that case is you then discard the xenon normally to your discard pile. You will turn this over. You will receive any bonuses that are in the middle, possibly coin or possibly an action if we're using the expansion, and it will also give you victory points at the end of the game. There's also a symbol here. Some of the tactics cards give you victory points for certain types of cards, so you will want to maybe collect those cards if you're trying to get extra points at the end of the game. Then you would turn it over to say you completed that card, and it now allows you to get another contract. The game end is triggered when one player manages to complete 5 upgrades or complete 5 contract cards. In this case, the player would complete 5 contract cards by completing that with the 3 Xenon, because they need 1 less Xenon to complete contracts. They would turn that over, and they would then receive the Xenon privilege token. They can then choose to either play it for the 3 points face up side, or turn it over to take a final turn instead. Normally they would not get a final turn, and every other player would get 1 more turn. However, they could choose to take a turn instead of 3 points to maybe complete other contracts or make complete upgrades that may be based on their endgame scoring. Then scoring will happen. Players will turn over their contract cards and count up any points that are on them. All upgrades are worth 1 point each. You receive 1 point for every $5 that you have. The player who turned over the privilege token to the 3 point side will receive the 3 points for that. Each pipeline card is worth 1 point as well. The player with the most points at the end of the game wins. So now we're ready to give our review of Xenon Profiteer. So Stephane, what do you think?
I was surprised at how much I really liked this game.
Too sweet, just like that. Nice and simple. Ditto, I really liked it. We're both usually a little hesitant when it comes to deck builders, but this is not a deck builder. It's a
deck unbuilder.
Deconstructor.
Yeah, deck destruction game. Oh, destruction.
So let's talk about art and theme.
I think the theme and art, they're appropriate to the type of game that it is. The colors are a bit muted, I find, on most of the card art, but I mean, it works for what it's doing. Yeah, it was kind of, the art on like the Xenon and the nitrogen, it just kind of seemed like it was there just because, and to differentiate them besides the like number, but like it didn't really need to be there, but I understand it was like simple art. They could have maybe done something, but how do you really visualize an element, right? So it's kind of tricky. I like the theme because you think, well, Xenon, actually I knew Xenon was, noble gases, but I didn't realize that people actually do distill it and pull it out of the air, obviously, there's a few things, and I actually looked this up, but I've forgotten what it's used for. That's the main or one of the only ways of actually getting Xenon in any quantity. But it's such a small fraction of what's in the atmosphere. So it's really interesting. So it's really cool that it's actually accurate, that you have to get rid of all this other stuff to be able to get to the Xenon. The neon, and the oxygen, the krypton. Yeah, isolate the Xenon, sorry, is the word they use. So yeah, so I like that. I like that you have to get like upgrades to help you do that. And then of course you're completing contracts that need the Xenon. So I think the theme is pretty bang on, and it's pretty consistent throughout. So let's talk about components. It's a card game, so the card quality is good. It's good thick card stock. It works well. The tokens, there's also the tokens. Now, the money doesn't look like money. It almost looks like victory points. So at first we're like reading the rulebook and we're like, well, where's the money? We're like, it's just these like 5s and 1s and stuff. And I'm like, they don't look like money, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. The tokens for the characters and stuff are cool because it was all fairly consistent. So it was solid. It wasn't like a super high end quality. It wasn't like metal or anything like that, but it looks like it's all going to be pretty sturdy. The cards felt nice. Felt like they were going to last a good long while. So game mechanics, and this is where it gets fun. I really like the different actions. Like on your player card, your main card, you can either take a regular day action, I forget the terminology for it, or you can work overtime. And you get different sets of actions depending on which side of the card you're using. Yeah, I don't think that the regular side actually has a term. It's just like the regular action side. Sure. Then you have overtime. The regular action set or overtime. And in my game, a couple of my games, I got to play the character who can do overtime multiple times in a row. Yes. Doesn't have to keep flipping back and forth. So that was useful for me in my strategizing to try and get the actions that I wanted. The only trick is, with that,
is you don't get to take in air. Like you don't take air, so you start to like bleed your deck a bit, and then you don't have a lot to work with. So I find that was really tricky to wrap your head around, because the idea is you're trying to build your deck. In this case, you do try to build it up, but to get rid of it.
Yeah, you
build it up to get rid of it.
You inflate your deck and then deflate it again. It's kind of interesting.
With air.
See what I did there?
So I find that was really cool, and you had to decide if you use overtime, you'll only be able to do certain things, versus the other side where you have to decide, do you want to do air, or do you want to wipe, do you want to buy, do you want to bid? You have to decide which of those, and deciding whether to play an upgrade as a one-off by discarding it instead of actually paying to have to build it into your upgrade. Sometimes you couldn't build it, so you had to use it as a one-off, and it wasn't as useful, but when it came up though, it was very handy. It was like gold. So I found it was like the length of the game. It didn't seem to be drawn out. Like, this is one of the things we always look for now, is whether it seems to be too short. Like sometimes I'll see games, I wish it had been a little longer. This is like way too long. It actually hits a really good, sweet timing spot for its mechanics. So final similar games actually. There aren't a lot that do the build-up, takedown, build-up, takedown. There's obviously a lot of deck builders.
I mean, you can reduce your deck in most deck builders. There's ways to, usually a mechanic to trash a card or whatever.
True.
And that can help you get rid of, cards that are less useful in the moment. But this really takes that a bit to the extreme, in that the trashing of the card is, part of the integral strategy of the whole game. I can't really think of another deck builder that does it quite like this.
No, because distilling versus discarding is two different things. Distilling, you actually take it out of your deck completely. Discarding, you just put it to your discard pile like normal. Obviously, Dominion, Dealer Merchants, they all have like where you can trash the odd card, but it's a lot more rare. And this one, you're almost trying to get rid out of many cards you can in your hand by using certain upgrades and getting it just right, so you can actually get rid of them versus just discarding. So it is fairly unique in that, and that's what I think makes this a game that I'm really happy that we own, because it is got that really unique mechanic that no other deck builder really has.
Right.
But if anyone can think of one that's similar, it would be really great to hear. So final thoughts.
Like I said, I wasn't expecting to like this game, and I really did. I like the theme. I've always been a bit of a chemistry buff, so the elements and the rare gases, the noble gases, all of that is familiar terminology to me. What I really liked about the game was seeing the different ways that Xenon is used commercially, based on the goal cards.
Something like that, but I kind of Googled it and did the whole search and discovered what was used for. It was kind of really cool.
So really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So it was actually a game that we'd heard about before we even got a chance to review the game. Was from a friend, a local friend, Jordan. He really loves this game. He loves deck builders, and the theme really appealed to him. I was still a little hesitant, but the fact that he loved it so much kind of made me, okay, let me give it a try. And so we were able to get a copy, and I'm kind of glad we did, because I was also very pleasantly surprised, and I'm really happy we have it and have enjoyed it every time we've played it so far. So
thank you, Jordan.
And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye.